Purina Gilli was born on August 3, 1911, in San Giorgio in Italy. She was the oldest of 3 children. She grew up on a farm, and because of financial difficulties, her family moved to Monte Chiari to get more work. When Purina was 7 years old, her father died, leaving her mother to support the 3 children. Her mother ended up placing Purina in a Monte Chiari orphanage conducted by the Sisters of the Handmaids of Charity. There, Purina made her first Holy Communion at the age of 8. When Purina was 11 years old, she returned home to assist her mother with the care of her 2 younger siblings. Her mother remarried a year later, and the family doubled in size as Purina now had 8 siblings. Unfortunately, her stepfather made inappropriate advances toward Purina, and she eventually told her mother. Partly due to that trauma, Purina decided to consider a vocation in the religious life at the age of 17. Her confessor advised her to wait in order to discern any genuine religious calling to the consecrated life. Despite all of this, Purina wrote in her diary regarding her family, "I was the first of 9 children, I the first to be delighted in the joy, the bliss, and the caresses of my parents. The day of August 3, 1911 was the dawn of my earthly coming, and I was baptized on August 5th, the feast of the Madonna of the Snow. On that given day, my mama consecrated me to the true mama in heaven, so that her maternal protection would preserve me as white and pure as snow." When Purina was 20 years old, she received a marriage proposal, but Purina felt torn. She felt deep in her heart that she was being called to be only for Jesus. After a while, her confessor also shared the same thoughts with her, confirming to Purina that she was called to the religious life. Purina joined the Sisters of Charity, but after a while she left because of health problems. She worked as a domestic servant for Father Giuseppe Porcini and caretaker for his elderly mother. She worked there for 7 years. Later, at the age of 29, she obtained her nursing license and worked in a hospital managed by the Sisters of Charity. In 1944, now 32 years old, Purina was accepted as a postulant by the Handmaids of Charity, although she never was able to make her final vows. However, she was very happy there and was assigned to work as a nurse in a children's hospital. Here, she contracted meningitis and was sent back to the religious order's infirmary for treatment. She had fallen into a comatose state for 12 days, and during this time, Sister Maria of the Crucified Rose, who was the foundress of the order and had died years earlier, began to appear to Purina. She held a vial of ointment that had been given to her by Our Lady, telling Purina, "You will be cured, but you will have a heavy cross to bear." Purina was cured, but a few years later, in November of 1946, she was stricken by a bowel obstruction and had to be taken back to the hospital. A few weeks later, still recovering in the hospital, Blessed Maria of the Crucified Rose appeared to her again. Our Lady also appeared. "Then I see the most beautiful lady, as if transparent, dressed in purple with a white veil that descends from her head to her feet. She held her arms open, and I saw 3 swords piercing her heart." Our Lady did not speak to nor converse with Purina at that time. A few months later, on March 12, 1947, after suffering heart failure followed by renal colic, Purina had to be admitted again to the hospital, where she lost consciousness. She was assisted by her congregational sisters as well as by her mother and sisters, who feared that she might die. She eventually recovered, although slowly. During the month of May 1947, Purina was subjected to diabolical vexations and experienced a vision of hell. In June of 1947, as Purina was praying the rosary, Our Lady appeared to her, dressed in purple, looking sorrowful. Showing her heart pierced with 3 swords, she said only 3 words to her: prayer, sacrifice, penance. Our Lady appeared for the second time on July 12, 1947. This time she was dressed in a white dress, with a white cape over her head, cascading to the floor. In place of the 3 swords were now 3 roses of different colors. white, gold, and red, which symbolized prayer, sacrifice, and penance. When Purina asked who she was, she answered, "I am the mother of Jesus and the mother of all of you. Our Lord sends me to bring a new Marian devotion for all male and female institutes, religious orders, and secular priests. I promise those religious institutes, orders, and secular priests who venerate me in this special way my special protection, an increase of spiritual vocations, few betrayed vocations, and a great sanctity among the servants of God. I wish the 13th of each month to be celebrated as the Day of Mary. On the 12 preceding days, special prayers of preparation should be said." According to Purina, Mary then explained the meaning of the 3 swords and the 3 roses. The first sword means loss of the vocation as a priest or monk. The second sword means priests, monks, and nuns who live in deadly sin. The third sword means priests and monks who, while giving up their vocation, also lose their faith and become enemies of the Church. The white rose means the spirit of prayer. The red rose means the spirit of expiation and sacrifice. The yellow or gold rose means spirit of penitence. Later in that same year, on October 22, 1947, at 7:00 p.m., while the rosary was being recited by Purina and others in the chapel, she saw a luminous ray of light shining from the tabernacle to a nearby statue of Blessed Sister Maria of the Crucified Rose holding a crucifix. She saw the statue of Sister Maria and the figure on the crucifix become suddenly animated. Purina rose up and knelt in front of the statue, and from the crucifix were emerging drops of blood, which Purina wiped with the purification cloth from the altar, as instructed by her holy foundress. The Blessed Sister Maria then spoke to Purina, "See how much blood is lost uselessly," and asked Purina to recite the following prayer: "My Jesus, mercy, pardon our sins." Then Our Lady appeared. She said to Purina, "For the last time, I come to request the devotion already recommended at other times. My divine Son wanted to leave proof of his most precious blood in order to witness how great is his love for all of humanity, from which is returned such great offenses. Get the purification cloth and show it to all here present. Behold the drops of blood of the Lord. Let it be covered by a white cloth, and then let it be exposed for 3 days in this chapel, together with the statue of Sister Maria of the Crucified Rose that will become miraculous for the sake of the devotion of the faithful. Have the coming factual test be referred to the bishop, and say to him that conversions and revival of faith will verify it. I interpose myself as mediatrix between all human beings, and particularly for religious souls and of my divine Son who, tired of continuously receiving offenses, wanted to exercise his justice. I vitally desire that this Institute of the Handmaids of Charity may be the first to honor me with the title of Mystical Rose." After a moment, Our Lady outstretched her arms and said, "Live for the sake of love," and then she disappeared. On November 16, 1947, while Purina was praying in thanksgiving after having attended Mass at the Minor Basilica of Our Lady of the Assumption, it was near the altar in a wonderful light that Our Lady appeared in the midst of a garden of white and red and gold roses. She asked Purina, as an act of reparational humility, the sign of the cross with her tongue on 4 tiles in the center of the basilica's floor. She requested prayer and sacrifice and penitence in reparation for the numerous offenses of humanity to the Lord. Purina asked Our Lady if she would take her to heaven. Our Lady smiled and said to her, "If you can be generous, then many graces can be obtained for the whole world." A few days later, November 22nd, during a locution, Our Lady summoned Purina to the basilica. She, along with a few other sisters and a priest, went to the basilica, and while they were reciting the rosary, Mary, surrounded by a tapestry of roses, appeared to Purina, saying, "I have come down to this place because here will be great conversions." Then she told Purina that her next visit to this basilica would occur on December 8th, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, at noon, in order to solemnly request the hour of grace. On December 7th, the eve of the Immaculate Conception, Our Lady appeared with a little girl and a little boy, each standing on either side of her, holding her hands. Our Lady explained to Purina that the children were the children of Fatima. She confided some secrets to Purina and then said, "Tomorrow at noon I shall come and show you the smallest part of paradise. Tomorrow I will show you my Immaculate Heart, so little known by humanity. At Fatima, I made the devotion of consecration to my heart. At Bonate, I sought to make this penetrate into Christian families. Instead, here at Monte Chiari, I desire to deeply enkindle the mystical rose devotion, united with the devotion to my heart. It comes profoundly into religious institutes, so that religious souls may draw abundant graces from my maternal heart. With this apparition for the sanctification of religious souls, I close the cycle of such apparitions." Regarding the reason for Jacinta and Francisco coming with her on this visit, Our Lady told Purina, "They will be your companions in every tribulation. They also have suffered, although much younger than you." The following day, December 8th, Purina went to the basilica at noon as requested by Our Lady, although she was discouraged by many people, including the Monsignor, to not go. Although Purina was hoping for the support of her mother and others who had previously gone with her, she said firmly, "It's almost noon, and so I must go." So she went alone to the basilica, where 1,000 people were in attendance for Mass for the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. Here Our Lady appeared, descending on a magnificent stairway, decorated in white, red, and gold roses. She said to Purina, "I am the Immaculate Conception. I am Mary of Grace, the mother of my divine Son, Jesus Christ. By my coming to the clear mountains, I desire to be called the Mystical Rose. Furthermore, my desire is to see instituted the hour of grace for the whole world by celebrating it on December 8th of every year in order to obtain graces and conversions, and to request the construction of railings for the custody of these cited 4 floor tiles, together with a statue that replicates the Mystical Rose." During this apparition, 3 separate healings took place, including a woman who had previously been unable to speak. She was at church and suddenly broke out into song. For this reason, and because so much attention was brought to the apparitions, Purina was being investigated and questioned by the authorities of the church. Although Purina was cooperative, she sought seclusion in the convent of the Franciscan Sisters of the Holy Child of Jesus. She didn't become a member of the convent, but she did stay with them for the next 19 years. Although Purina continued to receive locutions from Our Lady, she didn't see her again until April 17, 1966. By this time, Purina was 55 years old. In a place called Fontanelli, which means the little fountains, Our Lady appeared near a spring of water. Leading to this spring, there was a small staircase. Our Lady said, "My divine Son Jesus is all love. He has invited me to render miraculous this spring. As a sign of penance and of purification, give a kiss to the top step, then go down a few steps, stop, and then give another kiss and go down further. For a third time, give again a kiss to the bottom step, and here can be placed the crucifix. The sick and all my children, before taking and drinking the water, should ask pardon from my divine Son." During this cycle of visions, Our Lady appeared 5 more times. On August 6, 1966, the Feast of the Transfiguration of Jesus, Our Lady requested the institution of the World Union of Reparative Communion to be held on October 13th. She said, "I have chosen this place of Monte Chiari because in its children that work the soil, there is still humility as in a poor Bethlehem." From then on, Purina lived a quiet life in a little cottage. She spent most of her time praying, although she made herself available to pilgrims. The last recorded apparition was on March 24, 1983, when Purina was 71 years old. Purina died at the age of 79 on January 12, 1991. For many years, devotion to the apparitions was not approved by the Catholic Church, although it was fine to have devotion to Our Lady under the title of the Mystical Rose, since it was already one of her titles. However, in 2019, with the devotion of so many pilgrims coming to the apparition site, the investigation for the apparitions were reopened. On January 5, 2024, the apparitions were granted approval by Pope Francis, as it does not contain theological or moral elements contrary to the doctrine of the Church.